I've got broadband, so my connection to the net is quite fast. I usually go online in the evenings after I've finished my homework, but sometimes I use the net for schoolwork too. I surf the net and look at my favourite websites. My homepage is a website about fashion. My favourite search engine is Google. I sometimes download music and films, but not often. I haven't got a blog, but I chat online with my friends using a social networking website.
When you look for information about almost any subject on the internet, one of the most common places you'll find it is in Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the biggest encyclopedia in the world and the fifth most popular website in the world. It's the most popular reference work on the net, with approximately 365 million readers worldwide.
It was started in 2001 by two Americans, Jimmy Wales and Larry Sanger. However, the encyclopedia isn't written by them. It's written by thousands of ordinary people around the world. Wales and Sanger's original idea was to create an encyclopedia in the traditional way by asking experts to write articles. But after 1 year, they only had 22 articles. They realized that a small group of experts couldn't write all the articles themselves. It would take forever. They needed to have the articles written by other people. Then they came across wikis.
Wikis are websites that allow visitors to add, take away or change the content. This idea of normal people sharing information is a central philosophy of the web and now also of Wikipedia. The idea became the creation of the first People's Encyclopedia, written by normal people for normal people. Anybody can write an article, but writers get their work checked and edited by other readers.
After just 2 weeks with this new philosophy, they had more articles than in the first year. In 2007, 1,700 articles were being added every day. So far, over 24 million articles have been written. Somebody has calculated that you would need nearly 17 years to read the complete English Wikipedia.
The word wiki comes from an expression, wiki, which comes from Hawaii. It means quick. One of the most important things about Wikipedia is that it can change very quickly if necessary. When important events happen in the world, Wikipedia articles change sometimes from 1 second to the next. Some people say that this is the problem with Wikipedia. They say that you can't always believe everything you read there because the articles are written quickly. And sometimes incorrect information is being added by people who aren't experts in the subject of the article.
Meanwhile, what is true is that Wikipedia articles talk about all kinds of subjects. The most popular topic, with 30% of all Wikipedia articles, is culture and arts. 15% of articles are biographies or information about people. 14% are about geography and places.
There are over 280 different language versions of Wikipedia. The top 3 versions are English, German, and then French. The biggest, in English, has over 4 million articles. The smallest is in Herero, an African language. It only has 118 articles. But it's important to say that all these statistics are changing very, very quickly. After all, remember that that's what the wiki in Wikipedia means.
Okay, so both of the photos show people using computers, of course, but In the first photo, they're using computers for work, I think, for schoolwork. Whereas in the second photo, I think they're using the computer more for fun. In the first photo, the man looks like a teacher, and the girls look about 18 or 20, so maybe they are university students. I'm not sure, but I think they're probably in a computer class at university. However, in the second photo, the people are having a coffee and laughing. They're probably in a cafe or somewhere like that. I suppose one similarity between the photos is that they both show public places. You know, they aren't just using computers on their own at home. But another important difference between the photos is that maybe the people in the second photo are using their own laptop, but they have to pay to be in that place. I mean, they have to pay because they have to buy a cup of coffee or something, and sometimes that is expensive. In contrast, in the first photo, they don't have to pay to use the computers in their class. Personally, I never go to places like the one in the second photo because I prefer to have a coffee and use my computer at home. I use my computer for schoolwork and to play and surf the net. I spend quite a lot of time online. My mum says too much time.
The correct name for the British Secret Service is the SIS, or Secret Intelligence Service, but most people call it MI6. MI6 stands for Military Intelligence Section 6. This department generally works abroad, outside Britain. Of course, when people hear the name MI6, they often think of James Bond. Bond's adventures are obviously not true, but some things are similar to the real SIS. For example, Bond's boss doesn't have a name. She's just called M. In real life, the director of the SIS is called C. The reason for this is because the first director of the intelligence service was Sir Captain George Mansfield Smith Cumming. He wrote the letter C in green ink at the bottom of official papers and letters. C then became the code name for the director of the SIS. Another popular character in the James Bond films is Q. Q is the inventor of the gadgets and equipment that Bond uses on his adventures. In fact, the SIS really does have a similar person, the director of their new technology department. This director of technology works in the new headquarters of the SIS in London. This central headquarters is next to the River Thames. The outside of the building appears in 3 or 4 Bond films. Rather surprisingly, the inside of the building also appears in one of the Bond films. Not very secret for a secret service, perhaps. One thing that is more or less secret, though, is a possible tunnel that begins inside the headquarters and then goes right under the River Thames. Many people think this tunnel exists, but nobody knows the details. Or at least, nobody is talking.
Good morning, I'm Scott Wilson, and the topic of our phone-in today is, how do you like to find out the news? Do you prefer to watch it on TV, or maybe you read all about it in the newspaper? Perhaps you read news magazines, or are you the kind of person who catches up with all the latest news on the internet? Maybe, just maybe, you listen to your friendly local radio station. Whatever the answer, our phone lines are now open, and yes, I think we have our first caller. Hi there, what's your name, and where are you calling from?
Hi, Scott. I'm Amanda, and I'm calling from Cambridge.
Hi, Amanda. So, how do you keep up with the news?
I prefer the TV, really. I mean,
I know I shouldn't say this because we're on the radio, but I just think the news on the radio isn't as interesting as on the TV. Just because, well, you can't see what's happening. It's less dramatic on the radio, I think. A picture tells 1,000 words, don't they say?
OK, thanks, Amanda. Our next caller is...
Oh, is it me? Sorry, I'm Jerry. Morning, Scott.
And a very good morning to you, Jerry. Where are you calling from?
Sunny Stockport.
OK, and how do you find out what's going on in the world, Jerry?
Well, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I really like the radio, and I'm not just saying that, honestly. The thing is, on TV, they're too interested in sensationalism these days. TV news isn't serious enough for me. It's like watching a soap or a show or something. They show you all these spectacular images, but they don't really inform you properly.
Thanks for that, Jerry. Good point. And who's our next caller?
Sarah, from Leeds.
Thanks for calling, Sarah. What would you like to say?
Just following on from the last caller, I think the news on the radio is just as good as the news on TV. But to be honest, there's no comparison with the internet. I work at my computer all day and I can find out what's going on anywhere in the world as it's happening. The radio and TV, and especially newspapers, they're just, I don't know, they're just too slow.
Cheers, Sarah. Appreciate the call. One last caller before we listen to the new single from Kanye West. Hello? Who's calling?
Hello there, Scott. I'm Dan, calling from London. I agree with the last speaker because, the internet has changed everything. But I just think that although newspapers aren't as up to the minute as the net, they're much more informative. They tell you the full story about what's going on. What could be better than reading the paper when you're having your tea and toast in the morning or at the weekend? I'm tired of looking at the computer all day. I spend enough time in front of a computer at work, thank you very much.
Dan, thanks very much for that. Definitely agree with you about the tea and toast. Anyway, we'll be taking more of your calls in a moment after this song by Kanye.
Hey, Jim. How are you doing?
Hi, Sarah. I'm fine. What's up with you? You look worried or something.
Well, I'm not worried exactly. It's just that I'm thinking about what to do this summer, and I've got a bit of a problem.
What's up?
Well, my uncle has found me a job in New York, which is great. I really want to go, but I'm just not sure about the job.
Why? What is it?
It's working as an au pair, looking after 3 children. If I liked working with kids, I'd say yes straight away. But I don't think I'm patient enough to spend the summer looking after 3 little ones. I've never done it before, so I just don't know. Have you ever worked with kids?
Yeah, I worked on a summer camp once in Spain. It was great. The kids were good fun. To be honest, the time went quickly, swimming, doing sport, going out on excursions. It was really tiring because I didn't have much time for myself. I was always busy, but I had a good time. If you took the job, what would the conditions be?
Well, they said they'd pay for both my flights there and back, and they'd give me $150 a week pocket money. And then if I stayed there, I wouldn't have to pay for food or accommodation.
That's not bad. In fact, it's quite good, really.
The thing is, what would I do if I went and then found that I didn't like it? Then they wouldn't pay for my flight back, and I wouldn't have enough money to pay for the flight myself.
But is the job for the whole summer?
No, just August.
Look, if I were you, I'd take the job. It's only a month. If you found that you didn't like working with kids, then you'd know not to do it again. But you'll probably find that you love it. And think, you might not get another opportunity to live for a month in New York again.
I'd definitely go for it.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'm going to think about it a bit more, but I think I'll probably do it, just for the experience.
Well, believe it or not, today is the anniversary of an invention that is such an important part of our lives, it seems like it's been here forever. Yes, on this day in 1992, the first SMS text was sent. Here is Katie Dunn to tell us a bit more. Katie, first of all, what do the letters SMS stand for?
SMS means short message service. Of course, it's called short message service because SMS texts can usually only have 160 characters of the Latin alphabet.
160? That's not a lot, is it?
No, that's why, people have invented all these abbreviations, like the letter U instead of writing YOU, so they can write a complete message but with only a few characters.
Right. Anyway, we said the first SMS text message was in 1992. Who was it sent by?
Well, in fact, it was sent by a man who was working for the Vodafone company in Britain. He sent the message to someone he was working with at Vodafone.
So, go on. What did the message say?
Well, it wasn't very original. It was just, Merry Christmas.
Right. That isn't very original, is it? And was sending text messages popular right from the start?
No, not really. One problem was that you couldn't send messages to someone who was with a different phone company. When that stopped in 1999, SMS texts became much more popular.
Whenever I think of text messages, I think of teenagers. My teenage son is always sending and receiving them. Were teenagers responsible for making it popular?
Well, yes, they were really. The telephone companies weren't very interested in SMS messages initially, but teenagers saw that it was cheaper to send a message than to make a call, so they sent lots of messages.
Maybe I should send a message to my son right now to see if he's doing his homework. Katie, thanks for coming in.